Okay, we don't have a whole lot to go over today because we're about to wrap up the gastropods. Okay, so gastropoda is which animal? What's an example of a gastropod? Come on, someone throw me a bone, please. Nope, those are cephalopods. You're trying. I know. I get that. But and maybe it just never really uh, came out and said what a gastropod was, but those are bivalves. I mean, you got the right idea. I get that, but the reason I do remember talking about this, we talked about digestion. We said as far as in the human, us as humans are concerned, we have about 30 some feet of intestine, so we can squeeze, well, not squeeze, but absorb every little bit of nutrients that we need for our diet, for just normal metabolism, for our muscle cells, our liver cells, all the types of cells in our body. Okay, but when we talked about these animals, okay, here it says the anus and mantle cavity become anterior, because I remember showing you one of these exercises. Which one of these is torsion? It's a twisting action. So these animals have a shell where it actually went through the process of torsion and twisted. It's kind of like that of a drum on a cement truck is what it kind of reminds me of, because it goes through a spiral action. And that animal that has a shell that's slow and sluggish would possibly be who? That's one. Slugs and snails. And maybe it just never came out and just said that, I guess. But yeah, so now we know. Where did it there? So, sedentary animals, okay, heavy shells, slow locomotor organs, okay. So I guess it didn't. But here we see, here's a unifying characteristic of all animals in this phylum. They all have a radula, and they all have a shell of some sort. Okay? So as we move forward, their feeding habits, okay, is they are also, I almost said filter feeders, that's not correct. I guess you could say it's a form of filter feeding because of this mechanism right here. I'll let you write this down. Try to go into why that's important. And I think we've said this before. How do you know we're just not making this up? We're sitting here in class and he's talking about clams and squids and snails, and he said these are gastropods, these are peripherans. Maybe we're just making that up. It's kind of like, I think we've all been there as far as bringing your vehicle, maybe for maintenance that's just a little above and beyond your capabilities. As far as whether it's putting a new solenoid in, or a different starter or water pump or something to that effect. How do you know whether it's your water pump that's bad? You just take your mechanic's word for it? You'd like to think so, right? Does anyone bring their vehicles to the same place because you trust that person? Anybody? Anybody? Because okay. And how many of you go back to the dealership? Can be. Now, that just depends if it's a factory recall or if it's something serious, and I would possibly tend to agree, but in my opinion, especially when it comes to my motorcycle, okay, changing the oil on that is supposedly very easy. I believe that, but if you don't have the equipment to do so, it's pretty darn difficult. I mean, I think when you take it back to either a bike shop or back to the dealership, they probably put it on a hoist of some sort that has it standing nice and vertical, and you don't have to ratchet it one way or another to stand it. It probably has its own stand in there, so you're working like this rather than on the ground, right? I mean, not that you can't, but one of the things I think, I can't speak for you ladies, but you gentlemen, maybe your parents are saying this, when you start to get into your 40s, what used to be a lot simpler just isn't quite as easy as it used to be. I know I was looking at our downspouts, and I know I heard a clang. I like to take a football and chuck it over the house, and the dog goes after it. Sometimes there's enough slobber on it, it'll slip coming out of my hand, so it hits the back side of the peak and then goes tumbling and gets caught in the downspout. So what you got to do, you're nodding your head. This sounds familiar or what? You're just agreeing. So, you know, then you got to get the ladder down, then you got to climb from the ladder onto the roof, and it's kind of, I remember this used to be a lot easier than this. I used to probably be able to carry bundles of shingles up at the same time. I probably still could do that. It might take me a lot longer than it did when I was 17 and 18 years old. But heck, you guys probably take 2. Alex probably taking 3. Anyway, I digress. I'll shut up about that now. My point is, you know, as far as if I was going to sell that bike again, you have all the records of the maintenance on there, whether it was oil changes or anything that had gone on, and that would affect the resale value. I think you'd have a better shot. I think when it comes to, if you look at your vehicle now, you think, oh, I think it's worth $1,500. I think you would agree. You can say, you can ask anything you want, but are you going to get $1,500? Probably not. Maybe you'll get $800. I don't know. I'm just using a hypothetical example. Well, you do, but sometimes some people, they'll hear that first offer and they'll say, my vehicle's worth more than that. And then 3 months later, you still have it. And like the vehicle I drive, it's 2009 Mitsubishi Lancer. So new, I think I paid, it was that cash for clunker program where I traded my old car in to jump up in gas, because it was probably worth $800, but with the government rebate program I got $4,500 for it. So I think it was an $18,000 car, so I probably paid somewhere around 13. But now, you know, we're getting about 10 years old. I would like to think it's still worth, I think $3,000 would be a stretch. Do I think it's worth $3,000? Yeah, but there again, is someone willing to pay $3,000 for it? You can say, well, 10 years old and 170,000 miles, it's not worth that. And they'll probably be right, but okay. But anyway, so there again, whether you're just taking the word of the dealership or whatever, but with this, where do we see cilia in the human body? Okay, the most common place, and it causes us to do that. Someone said it. Yeah, in your throat, it's your pharynx. You have little tiny cilia in your pharynx that will become agitated and cause you to cough, okay? Because they're sensitive to whatever it is that's trying to get down in the lungs. So it says there's something in here that we don't want, so it causes you to try to I wouldn't say regurgitate, but try to flush that out of your system. But with these animals, these cilia, then it works as a sweeping action. Same thing with that of trying to sweep that material out of your pharynx then. And the reason we said it's a rudimentary form of filter feeding is these sessile gastropods, okay? In other words, it looks like they're sessile. Yes, they do move, but they are so slow that the cilia sweeps this mucus ball into their mouth. So it's a kind of filter feeding. So that's what I said. It's a rudimentary form of that. Now, this is the first time that we've seen this. If digestion is extracellular, that means these animals have a more advanced what? It's like this in humans. What's in this area, in your lower part of your thorax and your abdomen? What type of organs? Intestines and stomachs, which deals with what? Digestion, that's right. So if we have extracellular digestion, which we do, as you can see, these animals are becoming more complex, okay? And respiration is done through a gill, okay? So how is that oxygen getting into the bloodstream through the gills? Through what process? Starts with a D. And it's IFF diffusion. That's right. Okay. So then what do we say this organ does what for humans? Yeah, it filters out waste products then. That's right. Okay. Then I just want to wrap up this one, and then we'll move on to a different topic here shortly. Okay, when we say includes eyes and tactile organs, we're talking about not so much hearing, but probably tasting, okay? So there again, when we're starting to talk about this nervous system, we see movement, we see digestion, circulation, and also not separation, but excretion, okay, from that of a kidney. Okay, so includes sense organs like eyes. It's not the first time we've seen that. Jellyfish have them as well, but in this case, these tactile organs are used for food gathering. A little bit possibly hearing, but mainly tasting. And what type of circulation do these animals have? All animals in this phylum of mollusca is what type of circulation? Is it closed or open? It's open because they have what type of vessels? They've got arteries, they've got veins, but they lack capillaries because this blood pools in what? In sinuses, that's right. So that's what makes it an open circulatory system. Okay, so next week we will start the bivalves, but, excuse me, I thought this would be a good place to inject this part of this chapter, because this is one of the lesser known of the cephalopods, okay, which are by far the most advanced, okay, which would be that of the squid, the octopods, the nautilus, but then in this case, it's an animal that can go through natural camouflage. That's a cephalopod. It's a close relation to the squid. It starts with a C. You've heard of it. Yes? Cuttle something. Cuttlefish. That's right. So we're going to take time to view cuttlefish. And like I said, we'll start with the clams next week. I think I've got some back there.